Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the gray area.
Good evening, everyone.
So we'll go right into our prayer.
The prayer for gray area. God, please open my mind to new ideas, possibilities, and perspectives. Give me the ability to discern the truth. Help me connect with others despite our differences. Let me not lean on my own understanding. Lord, we invite you into this conversation. Have your way.
I'll go right into the gray area introduction. Have you ever thought to yourself, what is God's perspective on my situation? Does it align with his perspective? Introducing the gray area. The gray area is designed to challenge your thinking. As many times we don't realize it, but the way we're raised, the things our parents taught us, school, society, and experience all play a part in how we think and perceive things. Perception is everything. We're both mothers, wives, daughters, friends, ordinary women who love God, yet our one goal, our one desire is to please him, integrate his way and his perspective into our lives. This is not always easy, especially when you have been programmed to think a certain way. However, God has purposed us to challenge others on their very belief system. Does it align with his? We often try to see things black and white, wrong and right, good and bad, but this thing called grace and love does not always allow us to see things so simple. Everyday conversations, discussions, and situations through the lens of God is our prayer. We invite you to listen to our conversation and chime in. Perspective matters. So, Tashira, you want to go into setting the table for tonight's discussion? Before we start, in case we have some new listeners, we really want to invite you guys to take part in today's discussion. So if you have any comments, anything that you want to add, just hit *6. We'll see you in the queue, and we can take it from there. Thank you.
Well, today we want to talk about self-esteem. We had last week we spoke about we briefly breezed over the whole, and not that we want to get into it really, really crazy deep, but, it was Aisha Curry did a Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett, and she made some comments on there, and, with so much talk that was happening everywhere about what she actually said as far as how she felt about her husband and him getting a lot of attention from females, and, she was just saying for the last 10 years, she hasn't been getting the same amount of attention that he's been getting. She just said it was a lot that he gets, and, she said it doesn't help at the fact that she hasn't gotten any attention, in the last 10 years from, anybody of the opposite sex. So she was just feeling, I think it made everyone feel that everyone took it in different ways, but I think our conversation just, is a fallout of all the other conversations that started taking place after that comment was made. And our gray area question for today is, if you never got a compliment, would that affect your self-esteem? So if you never got a compliment from anyone else, would that affect your self-esteem? So that is what the gist of our conversation will be about tonight. And we really want to hear from you because we need, everyone's perspective. So I'll let you speak a little bit tonight. What do you think?
Well, I think one of the things I just want to point out is that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. And, in thinking about, the interview and just thinking about mental health overall, I think self-esteem is so important and critical. As I was thinking about the answer to the question, if I never got it, I definitely would say that it would impact my self-esteem, just to be, honest and transparent. And I think that what I took away from the interview from Aisha Curry, just in general of what the feedback people were saying was, why does she have, or the need for this external validation? And I think it's pretty interesting to kind of think about external validation versus internal validation. I grew up in a household that my mom did instill into me how great I am, how amazing I am. But for some reason, I think that there is a part of me that, I don't want to say sought after, but, definitely wanted to be acknowledged by people outside of my household for the things that I was doing. So I would say for me it would impact. Just like to kind of think about it clear cut, if no one ever complimented me, said anything amazing about me, would it impact me? I would say yes. It probably would. I'll let you go before I go further with that.
I'm still thinking about it because honestly, I mean, I'm trying to be I'm thinking about it over, and I've been thinking about it since we said we were gonna talk about this. If someone, because for me, I think the compliments that come externally enhance, enhance what you already feel. I think about yourself, if that even makes sense. Because I'm just saying, I feel like those people who get compliments, get a lot of compliments, I think kind of demanded by their strengths. You know what I mean? So how they exhibit themselves, I think kind of shows, kind of lends to the compliments that they get, if everybody's understanding how I'm explaining it. For me, I'm just thinking, like, if no one ever gave me a compliment, would that change how I feel about myself? I mean, I guess to some degree, but I don't think it would take away or eliminate how I feel about myself.
Right.
So I think that's an edit. Yeah, that's an edit. So I think it wouldn't eliminate how I feel and my self-confidence, but I guess it would be like, well, no one's even acknowledging the fact that, I'm doing this artwork so good. I don't think it necessarily always, has to be around beauty or the way that I look. I mean, I think for me, sometimes my validation, when I think about it, I think it more so in like a job well done, or I went all out to do something and nobody even, I worked so hard. I've been up all night for a week doing a project and no one even acknowledged that. So I'm thinking, when I think about self-esteem, or I more so, I guess, think about my abilities more so than my appearance. I don't, that's what I think I get.
And do you think that, because self-esteem, a lot of people joke, but they say self-esteem is something predicated on yourself.
Right.
But so much of it, and this is why this is such an interesting conversation, is that I would say a majority of people's self-esteem is predicated on the external component, even though it should be about self. So, as you were talking, I think we talked a little bit about this in our own personal conversation. You mentioned that your self-esteem encompasses so much more than just beauty.
Yes.
It's not just superficial. Do you feel like the way that you were raised, or how things that maybe your parents instilled in you definitely contribute to how you see self-esteem?
I definitely think, and I have to consider myself as blessed with the parents that I had, because I do feel like they definitely instilled a lot of self-esteem. I think my mom, like my dad, I think he definitely, I have to give him credit where credit is due. And I have two sisters, so it's three girls that grew up in my house. And I think that when we looked good, he acknowledged us, and when we, he acknowledged us, and I think he gave us confirmation. And I think from my mom, she showed us what confidence looked like. I think when she walked into a room, we all noticed. I think she kind of showed us, she gave us a visual on what confidence looks like. So it allowed us to see that it wasn't just about, it was appearance, obviously, because people look at you or whatever, but it's also in your abilities and what you can bring to the table, not just what you look like. So I think confidence and self-confidence, I think a lot of people think automatically, when you say you have low self-esteem, I don't automatically go to my appearance. I also think about my abilities in all the other things that I'm good at. So I think that could be a good point. I'm just thinking for others, because I think a lot of times people wait on other people to tell them, because in her case specifically, and I guess I'm going back to, where this all stemmed from, I think she was actually talking about her appearance and what she looked like, and no one, hitting on her or telling her that she looked beautiful. But I think when you get to a certain age, I think your prettiness is predicated on your abilities. I think I'm just saying for me, I'm just thinking like you get wiser over time. And when you have that confidence in all other areas, then you become like attractive. I don't know. I could be all over the place, but I'm trying to like break this apart a little bit. I'm not, I think that what you said is valid.
I think that, well, one of the things I wanted to say before I even go and elaborate on what you mentioned is that when you think of self-esteem, and so much of it comes from the external place about what other people say, the minute that people stop complimenting you, if you put so much emphasis as a person on how the external part or how others perceive you, the minute that someone says, well, you don't look nice today, or, you're ugly, or, whatever, that's just, I think it gives other people even more power when you rely only heavily on external self-esteem. I think that both may contribute to how we see ourselves, the external and the internal, for some people. But I think that there needs to definitely be a heavier balance on the inward part, and really knowing who you are. And just to kind of just be transparent about my own, testimony in my own walk, I came to a point where I wanted to rebuild my esteem predicated on who God called me to be. And I don't want to sound like too, Miss Perfect, but I realized that the things that I felt like was important are not important. And, building myself back up into who I know He created me to be, and to be this person full of love, and, just being the light. I think being the light itself is attractive. It draws people to you because it makes people want to talk to you and get to know you. So I think that it can mean a completely different thing as we're kind of leading this conversation to heaven's perspective on self-esteem.
Yeah. When you were talking about how other people, other people would say, or people kind of like rely on exterior validation, or people saying, oh, you're so pretty, or you're so pretty, and then when it stops, then it's like that person almost feels like, okay, something's wrong with me. And I think even going back to the original conversation that we were saying, she said that's why she had to do other things for herself. She had to go and have her own business and all that. And I think that's where, and I think that that's important. I think that sometimes, people get stuck on being pretty or being because that's I think that is what, I don't know, I just think that is what validates a lot of people, hearing somebody else say that they're pretty or whatever. But to me, when you can find your worth in other things, then it's easier for you to get that esteem built up. And I definitely follow what you're saying also in, making sure that you build yourself back up, and even in your walk, how you get, how your confidence and all that has built up. And I agree with that. I really, really, I do. I agree with that. But I guess I'm picking this whole thing apart because I want to kind of think like, is it something that, I don't know. I don't know if it stems from like a childhood thing, that why someone would have or struggle. With
I think that it is definitely a big component of it.
Yeah.
I think I think definitely that how you were raised and what people told you as a child, what was put into you as a child, I definitely think plays a major part in how you build your self-esteem from that part.
Yeah, I was reading this article.
Go ahead.
No,
I was actually saying about if no one ever told you how amazing you are, like, how would you know that as a child? Like, as a child, as an adult, you, through life experiences, you start to kind of gain sense of self, but as a child, so much of that is predicated on what your parents and your loved ones, the people around you, built. Like, they're the ones that are building you up. It's almost like they're the ones that are cultivating you. So if you don't hear that, how would you know that?
That's so true. I was going to say that I read this article and almost exactly what you said. They were saying that some kids that suffer with low self-esteem, they had a teacher who was extremely difficult, to deal with, and, made them feel inferior because their grades were less. People around them, they, instead of hearing like positive reinforcements, they heard negative ones, and it kind of lingered with them also. I just want to remind everybody, if you want to get involved in the conversation, please press *6, and then we'll see you in the queue, and we'll let you in.
Like, I'll give you an example. One of my favorite things I tell my kids, and I remember my relatives telling me this as a child too, like, the word can't is not even, it wasn't allowed in my household.
Yeah.
Like, we would get in trouble if we said, like, I can't do something. So that's something that I definitely pass down to my kids. Like, they're not allowed to say, I can't do something. And the minute that someone does, they have to repeat to me the scripture that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And for someone, that may sound so small and so simple. But if I teach them and remind them that there's, like, nothing that you can't do, like, there's nothing that you can't do with the help of God, I think that that's something that they'll remember even in their young age.
I agree with that. And I teach my kids also the same thing. I told them they could do all things through Christ. But why do you think that conversation got so much? Why do you think that conversation, or that what she said, got so much attention? Because at first I couldn't even understand why it got so much attention. The fact that she said because her husband, got all this attention, women are kind of throwing themselves at him, and, she hasn't gotten any attention. She felt the way, but, she also said it didn't help. So I don't understand, like, why it became this big thing for everyone to comment and weigh in on. I just thought that was her experience. And, everyone's entitled to their own experience. It just became this huge thing about, she has low self-esteem and she's this and that. And I just didn't understand where the whole argument came from. That was her experience. We're all obviously not the same, but she said it because she probably wanted to, help somebody, or somebody else could identify with it. I think a lot of times people just don't say. She also said she was on medication. That's the thing, is like that piece they picked out. She also said something about her being on medication for anxiety. Like, no one picked that piece out.
Yeah, no one talks about the anxiety piece.
but no one. But that's what. I thought that was really interesting. Why do you think? Like, why do you think it became something that big over?
I'm going to be honest. I think that is interesting. I feel like people perceive, when you look a certain way, and I feel like the platform that she's been given, and just even when people look at us as a certain way, I'm just using us as just human beings, and they see that you look nice, you dress nice, people feel like you can't have a level of vulnerability and you can't have a weakness. So I think coming from Aisha, I think if it was anyone else who said it, but for someone that's married to Steph Curry, who is like a famous basketball player, and being his wife, and they always see, whenever I see her, she looks amazing. She always looks pretty. I think people were saying, like, why would you even say something like that? Like, how dare you say something like that? And I think what I'm alluding to is people's own expectations and perceptions of her puts her in a box. Like, she's not allowed to be anything outside of what people expect her to be in their head. And I think that that's so not fair. But, I will say that I think we talked about it the last show, I'm so happy that she spoke her truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it definitely will help someone else because, many times, like I said last week, we often feel like only we feel like a certain way, like only I feel this way. But by her saying such a controversial statement, for someone else who is feeling that same exact emotion, I think makes them feel like, okay, it's not just me. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So it became something huge. I mean, it was been talked about like nonstop, and I couldn't understand what the big hoopla was about. So, I think it was just her experience, and I think I applauded her. I don't even know if I would honestly have said that either, but she seems to be pretty open about her experiences and open and willing
and
to
comfortable.
Speak. So, yeah, very comfortable with it. Yeah. So
I want to say something that I heard Ciara talk about, and I've said this before, and I heard this, that actually being vulnerable makes you stronger than anything. Like many times we think that strength comes from holding things in and not letting people see who we really are. But I mean, Ciara was talking a little bit about this. Being vulnerable is a strength.
Being vulnerable that is a strength. Yeah.
I thought that was so powerful when you think about it. So I'm just using, we're talking about, we have a caller in the queue, but
I just want to make a quick comment. Caller, 1 second, but I just wanted to say being vulnerable is a definite strength because people don't realize, like, when things are hidden, it almost becomes bigger than they seem, than they really are. You know what I mean? They become bigger, and when you're vulnerable and you kind of expose it and it's out there, it's not that big anymore because it's almost like it's like something that no one can hold against you. It is what it is. This is what I am, and like she said too. She said I'm unapologetic. It is what it is. So if I'm hiding it or I'm not even able to speak about what I'm going through, it's almost like it's this big thing. It's almost like this big thing for you. That's almost like the secret.
I think it shows that you're conquering something.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna allow, this thing to put me in this place where I'm afraid to speak about it. Like once you put it out there, you're vulnerable. It's out there. Like what else can happen? So yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I think that's something that I'm learning as I age because I was taught the absolute opposite. So it almost seems contradictory to what But go ahead, caller. Sorry about that.
Hi, caller.
Good evening.
I think you have to unmute your phone.
Oh, okay. All right. My name is Claudette, and I have some, maybe questions or statements or however I could help in this conversation. Okay, I don't know who you're referring to, but I figure is a celebrity's wife. And
Stephen Curry's wife.
Huh?
The basketball player, Stephen Curry?
Right. So I'm saying it's a celebrity wife. Everybody knows Steph Curry. Yes. So why would somebody is she looking for a compliment from the opposite sex, or just from her friends? Those are questions that we need to ask. Or why would, I know her friends or the other guys know that she's married to this guy. Why would they be complimenting her? And again, this is another statement because recently women have been complaining about men's compliments. So men are now afraid to give women any sort of a compliment. Especially a married woman, with her husband. So all of these things become complicated in the factor. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid to tell you look good because it becomes sexual harassment. So, I don't know how it's going to happen because a lot of women have been complaining of this problem. Men say, oh, you dress look nice, or you this look nice, and it's a problem. So how do you get the compliment? I haven't heard a man complain yet that, too many women is giving him any attention. So these are the things women also have to encounter, when there's going to be backlash to our behavior. All right? I hope this helped, and we can debate some more on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. You made some really great points. Go ahead.
Yeah, she did. I was just going to say that, and you can correct me if you took something else from it, Shanae, but just based on the way she spoke, Aisha Curry spoke in the interview, it was alluding to a man. Or men. She would like to be, she wanted to get attention from men, and she hasn't gotten any for a long, long time. So that's what she was kind of alluding to. You got that too, right? Right, Shanae?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And so to the caller, that's why I think I started off talking about external validation. For her, so I think self-esteem is so interesting. I think for different people it's different things, but for her, from the interview, it sounded, I'm taking a stab at it, looking for that for her to know that she looks good, men from the opposite sex would compliment her. I think that would make her feel good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, for her, I think that she said it would be nice if they did. I think it would help validate. But I think a lot of women, yes, it sounds crazy to our caller. It does. But I feel like I agree. Although it sounds crazy, I think that's a reality that a lot of women struggle with. Maybe not for you, caller, or some of you on the line, but I do know of friends, just think about, when you used to go out or if you used to go to parties and stuff like that. A lot of women did it for attention from the opposite sex.
But the caller said something, and we have somebody in our queue, so just hold on 1 second, caller. But our caller said, our previous caller said something very interesting that I thought I identify with the fact that the Me Too movement and the fact that women are complaining at the fact that they're getting attention, and she's just not any, like me or you walking on the street getting attention from a guy saying, hey, shorty, what's up? It's totally different from her who's in the public eye, that a man could lose his status or lose, what he built himself up to be just because he,
But just think about it. The minute that someone gives her a compliment in her DM, which is like message her on social media and say, hey, you look nice, and she shares that, it becomes public. Like, it can be like John Gray gave Aisha Curry, like it becomes magnified to like the 10th degree. I'm just using those two names as an example. But I thought that was an amazing point, that we also are in a society that, sexual harassment is extremely sensitive. You're walking a very fine line between, if a man gives you a compliment, what does that really mean? He's harassing me. So now I think some men felt like, I'm just going to fall back.
Yep, exactly. So we have a caller on right now. Hi, caller. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. This is Tommy. I just wanted to go back to the original comment, the original statement, that if anyone gives you a compliment, would that affect your self-esteem? I believe self-esteem is something that's within yourself. And so, I believe that you guys are just talking about your confidence and your appearance and how you look, but not your self-esteem. That's something that you develop within yourself. If you're confident, then when you walk and you talk, people are going to want to talk and look at you anyway. But, it's also where you are in your life, what place you're in. If you're slightly sad or depressed and you need somebody to give you a compliment. But when you're confident, you're confident. That's just my opinion.
So you feel that if someone, if no one ever gave you a compliment, and I guess right now, in the comment I was thinking not just for look's sake, but not only looks in general, would that affect yourself, like your self-esteem? And I get it too, that self-esteem is definitely self and what you tell yourself. But do you think that it would kind of change how you see, or even your confidence level, like you said, your confidence level?
I don't know for sure, because I don't know if people walk every day and people give them compliments. I get complimented, but, whether I got complimented or not, I would have still wore what I wore. I still would have dressed the way I wanted to dress. It's after I put what I put on where people compliment me, and it doesn't gauge what I wear the next day because I'm not going to wear the same outfit. But, you know, for me, I mean, to me, it's all about confidence and how you are within yourself. And, like, I mean, you guys are talking about Ayesha Curry. I mean, that topic is just so different. I mean, I think that the reason guys don't compliment her is because of the respect that they have for their relationship and how they present themselves. You know, when you walk in a confident marriage and you guys walk in a union, men are not trying to break that. You know, a lot of, especially if you're in the limelight the way that the way that they are in, you know, where he sits on this platform, they're not going to disrespect him because he's a star athlete. They look up to him. They respect his marriage and his family. And, you know, well, women are not as respectful in that area, especially they're always trying to get in. So that's just, you know, what I see.
But do you think that's because of a lack of self-esteem? I mean, looking at, thank you, Tommy. I think that was a great point because, you know, I mean, the dictionary, it defines self-esteem as confident in one's own worth or abilities or self-respect. That's what the dictionary says. And so, you know, in going back to what you said, that men don't do that, but then women, because in the interview she mentioned that women do it all the time. Is that a reflection of a lack of self, you know, or low self-esteem? Because
women always want to be number one. They always want to one-up another woman. If they see what you have, they always want to either outdo you or try to see if they could do better. And so, you know, but with men, you know, it's all about seeing what they can get. And if they respect you enough, they're not going to try to chase after what you have, you know.
So it's kind of different for men then, just in general.
In my opinion, because men don't always want to be number one. You know, women always want to be number one, and that's why they always try to get your husband. So if you think about how you see how women are and how they do things, they're calculated. You know, even if they know that they're the side girl, they always will try to make themselves number one. They will never be a secret because women always have to show themselves. But a man will be a side piece forever and would not care as long as he's getting what he wants. He's not going to tell anybody. But a woman will tell, because she wants to be number one. No woman wants to be second to anyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm changing the topic just a little bit, but, you know, if you think about it, women always want to be number one. Just think about when they're sitting in a room. They want to outshine you. They want to outdo you. They want to.
Right.
They always want to be number one. It's always a competition.
But one of the things I want to ask you, because you mentioned that you talked a little bit about having confidence. And so a lot of these women, they have confidence, you know, they're extremely bold, but then the lack of self-respect, sometimes it's camouflage. Like, come on, they look confident, or they appear to be confident, but underneath they are not.
They're not at all.
When you put yourself in a position where you have no self-respect, it makes me wonder if you really do have a high sense of self. Because why would you put yourself in a position where you, for example, because we're using this example with Ayesha Curry, where you're throwing yourself, for example, at a married man. So, you know, as you're talking, it just helped me to kind of explore that it's a little bit deeper than just confidence, because we can all camouflage and make ourselves appear to be confident or got it together. But that underneath piece, it's more than just how you look. It's also about how you carry yourself and self-respect. Like, I just keep seeing that pop up in a lot of the definitions for self-esteem, self-respect, self-regard, self-confidence, morale, self-assurance, pride, like all of those things. And I wouldn't have necessarily thought about that when I thought of esteem, because I necessarily attribute it to physical, you know, or you know, how well you do something. So thank you, caller.
Thank you, Tommy.
It would be interesting. I know we have to close if we got a man's perspective on self-esteem, because I don't think that men necessarily view self-esteem the same way for women, or maybe they do. I'm not a male. But, you know, it would be nice if we have any male callers that wants to chime in as we conclude tonight's discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I heard Tommy's perspective, and you know what? I don't know what a man's, like, you know, where if their self-esteem is assessed the same way as ours, but just by what we can see, I could totally see what she's saying. I could totally see what she's saying as far as like how men do things versus how women do. And I don't know, and I think that has a lot to do with self-esteem and self-worth, because like I told you, I think when you think of self-esteem, it's bigger than just your appearance. It's bigger than what you think you look like. It's huge. It's all about, what you feel your self-worth is, all of those things.
And how you carry yourself.
Right, your values, your morale, right,
Yep.
what you represent, that you're valuable, all those things. So, I would, just by looking at the two different, at the two different sexes, you could see a difference as far as how women can view themselves versus men. But it looks like we might not have any men on tonight that would like to throw that in. But you could.
I wanted to. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to Heaven's perspective before I give my closing challenge?
We actually have one last caller I'd like to let in, and then we can wrap it up. Hi, caller.
Hi, caller.
Hi, this is Jay from Queens.
Good evening, Jay.
Hi, Jay.
How you guys doing? I was listening to the conversation, and I know that the roots of the foundation are based on the Ayesha Curry conversation. I found myself not feeling any type of way about what she said. I look at it from the perspective of she lives in a bubble. She's always got security around, so the normalcy of being able to run out to 7-Eleven or, just being able to pick your kid up from school and having normal interaction with humans on a regular basis that's not in a secured conversation or secured situation, I could see her totally being deprived of that. So the idea of someone saying, hey, you look nice today, whether it be, a friend, a coworker, someone who absolutely cares nothing about you sexually, that type of normal interaction is not there. Not to mention the obvious of, she goes out with the girl, she has a nice red dress on and some pumps, and, somebody saying, yeah, then somebody tries to holler or whatever the case may be is. So I can understand on a few different levels. I think that her articulation of it was wrong. But getting back to the topic, I always felt like self-esteem was in the way we articulate it or use it in this day and age is contra to what the definition is. It's self-esteem based on internal values, but we generally make it based on external stuff. And, it's like a woman who could say, her husband doesn't compliment her, so her self-esteem is low. And it makes no sense because you're supposed to have your self-esteem is supposed to show him or remind him that, at any given moment, you could lose all this, bro. So, right. and the same thing for a man. I think that for men, a lot of times, our self-esteem can get built up based on interactions with the opposite sex, or because I was listening to the conversation you guys were having, and the same things that women go through, men go through that stuff too. You better believe that when a man steps in a room, 9 times out of 10, if his self-esteem is low, or he's grown up in situations where he's had to size the room up, chances are that's what they do. They size the room up. They look at other men. They look at, it's the same thing that women do. They look at men based on the physicality, compare themselves in the mind, decide whether they're going to like a person or not, or rock with a person. But it all depends on the self-confidence that a person has. being comfortable enough with themselves, being in a room with other people, that they don't feel like they're in a competition. But
right.
I do believe that the external factors based on, we base a lot of our self-worth in this society, in this day and age, based on external values, but that's essentially how we're programmed.
Yeah.
And that's why our TV shows are marketed the way they are, our commercials, our ads, because the things that we have are, we value ourselves by our possessions and how we build ourselves, not based on who we are or God made us. So it's kind of like you have to reprogram yourself, or be fortunate enough to be in a household where those values can be taught even from a young person, and still hold on to those values as you are assimilated into the world. But that's my 2 cents.
No,
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay. You brought up some great points.
A lot of great points.
I didn't know that men struggle with similar things as women, so that was insightful. Before we go, I just wanted to bring our attention just to a few of the scriptures, as to kind of reinforce how amazing we all are. Which one will I use? Proverbs 31:30 says, "Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised." Ephesians 2:10, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." Isaiah 43:4, I'll just read this last one. "Because you are precious in my eyes and honor, and I love you, I give men in return for you, people in exchange for your life," without going into, but there's a lot of scriptures where it's reinforced that we were fearfully and wonderfully made. That's another one of my favorite. And God reminds us just how great we are. And so, as we're having this conversation about self-esteem as it's Mental Health Awareness Month, I think it's important for us to remember that everyone didn't grow up like us, and everyone may not be in the same place as us, and just to kind of be cognizant of that. Because sometimes we assume that people are in that place. And I guess I just want to kind of stick it there. Like Ayesha Curry, she's just one person. Yes, she's a celebrity, but there are a lot of women who struggle or feel the same way. It may be from people that we least expect. And so I just kind of wanted to point that out there. And the purpose of the gray area question, as we were kind of like trying to think about it, is how much do we rely, and I'm leaving this as a challenge, how much do we rely on external validation? How much do we rely on external validation from others? Some people may say none. Some people may rely on it a lot. But some people, rely on it very small. So it's just something to kind of think about and take away. And, I just want to encourage you to kind of continue to have this conversation with other people and see what their thoughts are. Because I definitely think the way that we're raised definitely impacts how we see self-esteem. For sure.
I think the purpose of, every time we speak is to just be more conscious, like just living more consciously, all of us as human beings. And, like Shanae said, just being aware of how much do we look for external things to validate our self-esteem and our self-worth and how we feel about ourselves. And, I think it's really important for us to just be aware, because I think when we're aware, then we can make changes. So, Shanae spoke of a few scriptures, but I love the one, and I also, sometimes when I walk out and I feel good, I think to myself, like, I was made in the image of God. Like, I'm powerful. There's nothing that I can't do, and God says that. There's nothing that I can't do. So I think even you knowing that, you were made in God's image, and you are, if you want to do something that you can, I think even just knowing that, and even, the conversations that you have with yourself I know for me, that's how I build myself up. And I remind myself, there's nothing. If there's something that I want to do, there's nothing that should stop me from getting it done, because I was made in God's image, or what's better than that? So, I just want to leave everybody with that. And that's pretty much it. So go ahead, sorry.
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for hanging in there on today's discussion. And, if you want to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, please do. The Gray Area Conversation. If you have any suggestions or comments about today's conversation or future conversations, you can always email us at thegrayareaconversation@gmail.com. And we're also very excited in continuation of Mental Health Month. We'll be talking about, what's the topic, Tashar? Social media's impact on mental health. I think that's a very important, significant conversation. So, if you guys can just share with your friends, your coworkers about next week, I think we would like to hear from everyone if possible, and we're also going to have a surprise guest. So, once again, thank you guys for tuning in tonight.
And one last thing, if you follow us on any of our social media platforms, you can see our podcast link. So all episodes, all past episodes, and tonight's episode will be on our podcast. Thank you so much.
Forward it to friends and family. Please
forward
it to whoever you think that would value hearing about the conversation, as our mission is to keep the conversation going. So thank you guys once again.
Good night, everyone.